Okay, we are recording, and I'm here with Cierra Jones, one of my top seniors. She is embarking on a career, leaving Mount Vernon High School in my class. She was in 7th period, presentational speaking, did very well. And I've asked her to be here because her takes are the takes that, this is how I feel, the takes that people don't hear or see. You post some on social media, but none of the corporate media, none of the big shots, who in my opinion have co-opted the movement and done what they always do. They've taken a legitimate cause. They did this with the Tea Party back when you were very little. They did this with Occupy Wall Street. And you have big corporate, big government taking control of a legitimate movement. You have militarization of the police. You have the unwatchable, as we talked off camera, unwatchable tragedy of George Floyd. I mean, I got that and was very uncomfortable. And a friend of mine sent it to me in WhatsApp. And he's no friend of, he's not a, dude lives in the projects in the polo grounds. So he's got no love for organized power or police officers. And he was just beside himself. So anyway, we saw this, we saw the events, and I think it's been co-opted. I think the events in Minneapolis have been completely lost in the shuffle, and everybody is grabbing at power, influence, shaming people, white versus black, black versus white. You know how this goes. We talked about it in class. Yeah. But I think your and your peers' voices aren't heard unless they're exactly what kind of so-called progressive corporate media messaging is. So that's why I asked you here. So I'm curious as to your take. Talk to me. I think you were doing it before when we were off camera. Start from the beginning. Tell me the process. Tell me where Cierra Jones is in all of this, because you should talk to people.
Okay, so we can start with the George Floyd situation. I saw social media is a big part of our lives, yes. So everything gets spread like rapid fire. I don't really remember the exact date, but I remember finding the video on my timeline and seeing it. I didn't click on it, like it was a preview, and I already saw that it was like very violent and stuff. And then I saw R.I.P. George Floyd, and I was like, no, I'm not sitting here and watching this. Not tonight, not today. So I didn't. I remember the first video I've seen like with police brutality, and it was with Eric Garner. I remember getting chills. I almost cried. I just didn't like it. Like it was just too much for me. Like it was just too much. So after that, it started a whole movement. Well, not really started a whole movement, but brought it back up to like the Black Lives Matter. Now that movement in itself is a very like interesting, like that's all I can say. It's really interesting because I feel like it's misguided in some way, in some form.
Okay.
Yes, I believe Black Lives Matter. I would say that to the day I die because we do matter, right? And yeah, but people are taking it and using it for their own gain, their own advantages. Speaking from experience, I want to talk about this. I went to a protest, right? I'm Mount Vernon, yeah. I felt like I had to show up. It was just like, that's me. I show up. So I showed up, and we were listening to people speaking and everything, but really it was them just pushing their agenda. Some people got angry, some people were speaking up about it, and then finally it was this one girl. She was really upset. She was yelling. She was like, what are you talking about? You're not saying anything. Like, you're not really giving us anything. So the mayor, which I really like, I was like, wow. She said, if you have something to say, come to the mic. So she went there and she addressed the young lady and she was talking to her. And I was like, she handled that perfectly because that would have made everything turn violent. Because once she started speaking, the young lady, everybody started like feeling the shift in energy. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want this to turn violent. I was with my friends. So I was like, we have to find a place where we can meet up if anything happens. So we did that. Yeah, so she settled the situation, and the lady, she spoke, and she was really saying some powerful stuff. Like she was speaking from our perspective, the youth. Because a lot of the times people don't listen to the youth. Like we're just here. Nobody wants to listen to us. But really and truly, this is our world. When you guys pass away, this is our world. So yeah, she spoke her stuff, and it was really interesting. It was really good. I agree with most. I was agreeing with most of her points.
What did she say?
Um,
What was she saying that made it memorable?
she pretty much said that like everything's like we have to address issues in the community before we try to make any progress. In Mount Vernon, she spoke about how there was like a majority white police officers that were graduating this year. So she was like, well, why is it so many white police officers in a black community?
Hmm.
She was just bringing up stuff like you guys are all talk with no action. There's nothing being moved, no laws are being passed, nothing is being done, but just talking about what you're gonna do, but no action. And she was talking about how family life, we have to work on that. We have to band together. We have to be strong because
Hmm.
in this time, it's it's just very hard for everybody. But yeah, she said some very powerful stuff. Um, what else? So yeah, I believe that the Black Lives Matter movement is kind of taking a shift,
Hmm.
and especially with the media.
Yeah,
I
talk to me about the media. You've always noticed an odd, as I'm pushing 50, you're not even 20, yet we saw some of the same things with the media in class. I remember you snapping up into attention early in the year when I mentioned the media's role in crafting the narrative and pushing people in certain directions. How are you able to see that? Tell me what you see going on now. And you're even saying something as seemingly innocuous as you think some of the Black Lives Matter movement is misguided or maybe going the wrong direction. In today's climate, that's risky. People, you're not allowed to be have any sort of dissenting opinion. That's what I see. So go back to the media and tell me
yeah,
what
definitely.
you're seeing happen.
So, well, obviously we're in a time of quarantine and Corona.
Hmm.
So I just want to start with that a little bit, even though it's kind of off topic.
Go for it.
They scared us. They really scared us because watching the news, I realized I stopped watching the news
Hmm.
very like around like senior year. I stopped watching it. Um, but they really scared us, and I
Hmm.
noticed it because literally every day, every second, every hour, it was coronavirus. Every second, every hour.
Hmm.
So they really just scared us. And now that I'm realizing that, okay, they scared us and we were scared for a long time. But now we're not scared anymore. So you see everybody coming outside, you see everybody doing what they're doing. But with this the riots, with the whole movement itself, they're really like they put a twist on it. I've seen like articles where it's like completely false. I read it, it's like completely false. I find another article that's saying a different thing. It's
Hmm.
just very they they shift it. They want
Yes.
people to see a certain perspective, and that's not okay.
Right.
Because I remember watching it. It was like fires everywhere. It was just like very violent. You see the police officers in lines, and you
Hmm.
see black people and everything. Like it was just like the way they played it. It wasn't the accurate representation of what was going on. Because really and truly, with social media, obviously you see a lens, like you see the truth.
Hmm.
So I saw videos of cops like undercover people smashing the windows, doing everything. And then I saw like one video where it was like a pile of blocks
Oh yeah, they
right,
had the pallets of bricks in the middle
right
of the
next
street.
to, yep,
Hmm.
right next to a building.
Yes.
People are angry. What do you think people are gonna do? They're
Hmm.
gonna pick up a brick and start throwing it. Like
Yes.
it was just like the media really does like shift the perspective and change things because they're not showing the white people that are destructing property. They're
Hmm.
gonna only show the black people or the people of color, which I really don't agree with because that's not really what it is. And yeah, they're really like focusing on the looting, on everything else, like all the bad, but they're not showing the peaceful protests. People in Manhattan are marching every day peacefully. They're not talking about that as much as they're talking about the looting, about all the fires and everything. They're not talking about that. They're talking about people getting hurt and everything. And I mean
Hmm.
that's good that we find out and that we're learning about the people that are getting hurt by
Hmm.
the police during this, but it's like it shouldn't be happening. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, they had and it's funny what people get depending upon where they look, because you have kind of these upper middle class skinny white folk in all black in this Antifa stuff, and you have a part of the press saying it's those people that the, you know, black people aren't doing as much looting as they're being told, and they'll show those people. And then, like you said, some media will only show black violence. And it's this strange kind of like the messaging all over the place is, it's difficult to find anything that's not agenda driven. I understand bias, right? People have bias. I don't think it's possible to get rid of that. But when I see agenda, I think you see the same kind of agenda stuff that I see. I always come back to the same place where the idea is you have a militarized police, and you're too young to know this, but if you were a libertarian in the 1990s and you talked about the militarization of the police, and you had all these shows, you had Cops, you have Night Cops, you got, you know, that those shows where they show the police officers, you know, being rough with people, and a huge entertainment. People love that stuff for some reason. If you talked about the federal government arming police departments in the 1990s, you were called a conspiracy theorist. There was no two ways about it. You were not allowed in polite conversation. Now it's become obvious to everybody. It's and it's costing people's lives. And you now have a legitimate issue that has come up to everybody. And that issue, in my opinion, has been completely buried. It's been, I see social media. I have an Instagram account. I have a Facebook account. You know, I know my way around the internet. And it's turned into everybody calling everybody else racist, tearing down statues, and some kind of enclave in Seattle, Chaz or Chop, depending upon what you're talking about, where they told the police to get out, and they're now living in this autonomous zone, which has nothing to do, in my opinion, with what happened and what was the spark. Am I on point? Is what's going through your filter?
I agree. It's been buried, definitely. Everybody's so angry, and people get people get like clouded by their emotions. So you're not gonna see straight. You're not gonna you're not thinking straight. You're thinking with your anger. You're thinking with your sadness and everything. And a lot of people are not able to detach and see the facts and be able to move accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
like I know this girl, one of my friends, she's just so angry. And I'm like, I can't be angry like that. I mean,
Okay.
I'm upset that this is happening, but I can't let this anger project onto other people and spread ignorance, spread everything, because it's not really I'm not helping the cause.
What do you want to spread?
I don't want to spread information, really and truly. I just want people to know what's going on and to try to take action. And taking action means registering to vote, obviously,
Right.
and trying to vote locally as much as you can.
Excellent.
That's all. And supporting Black businesses. I know a bunch of girls. One of my best friends, she has her own company, and I'm always sharing her stuff and helping her out because I want her to see her succeed. And yeah, but
does tearing down statues and stuff like that help? What you just said to me sounds like a fantastic message. Be involved locally, like the young lady at the protest in Mount Vernon, which I hadn't heard of. I mean, I knew it was going on. Emily had told me about it, but I hadn't heard any report from it at all. But the young lady who mentioned the police officers, it's possible, you know, she has a legitimate point. I don't know how many people apply. I don't know who applies. I don't know what the requirements are. You know what I mean? I don't know that part. If the police department is getting X number of people by a certain race, to some degree their hands are tied. But it's a good point. It's something that needs to be out there and discussed. And then going to Black businesses, supporting a friend who has a business. These are all very germane to a local situation and bettering the local community. Your points, though, are not the points that are out there. I've mentioned down on I'm in the Bronx, down on Fordham Road. There were local businesses owned by people who don't look like me. Let's just put it that way. And their businesses were destroyed. This was 2 weeks ago on Tuesday. I don't see any benefit to that. I don't get it. What am I missing?
Honestly, I feel like they just don't want to work. I know, I don't know how to really explain that. I just feel like they don't want to work because
Who
it's
doesn't
gonna
want to
take
work?
time. People,
Okay.
people don't want to work
Oh,
toward
I see what you're meaning. Yeah. Put in the
toward
hard work that goes to the
yes,
goal. Continue. Yes.
yes.
I get it now.
People want to get upset. People want to make noise. You
Hmm.
can make noise, but what you gonna do afterwards?
Hmm.
Like, are you gonna go and register to vote? Are you gonna go and volunteer
Hmm.
to help clean up the situation? What are you gonna do?
Right.
You can talk, you can speak. That's your freedom of speech. Do that. I will never take away somebody's voice. But you have to do something after that. You can't just talk and talk because then all you're doing is talking. And then the same thing is going to happen in the next 4 years. Because in ninth grade, the same thing. I remember it was eighth grade, summer into ninth grade year, the same
Hmm.
thing happened. And I believe it was with Eric Garner. There's something around another person. And the same thing happened, the same uproar,
Hmm.
the whole protest and everything. But look where we are right now.
Right.
Clearly what we're doing, clearly us talking, clearly us being loud is not helping. We have to do something more. And nobody wants to do that because it's work.
Hmm.
It's a whole lot of work because it's a whole lot wrong here. A whole lot wrong.
Yes.
So that's why I feel like it's not gonna work out.
Hmm.
It's not like it's not gonna work out, but I don't see it working out anytime soon because nobody's banding together to work towards the main goal, and that's getting us like almost what is the end goal?
I think
Stop
you're talking, continue.
stopping police brutality.
Yes. Self-sufficiency in the
That's
community.
definitely
Right.
self-sufficiency. Oh my God.
Killer
That's
Mike was talking about that. Remember, I showed you guys the video from years ago where he's like, "Are you prepared to hunt? Do you know how to load and clean a rifle? Do you know how to
no.
fish? Right? Can you understand how money works?" Like he went off in that video we saw. I think it was in November or December, and
Yeah.
that's he. I didn't see the message, but I saw his name pop up in the aftermath. Um, and he and others have said stuff like that, like let's be autonomous in our own communities,
Yeah.
but that message doesn't seem to fit. And I, you know me, I detest corporate media. They're just repellent.
Mhm.
Say what you want about Donald Trump, and there's a lot to talk about. Definitely, there's a lot to say. That's for sure. But when he used the phrase "the enemy of the people," and corporate media is the absolute worst because though if I suspect, and tell me if I'm right, if you were to have a large platform and you were to say, look, we need to vote locally, we need to focus on ourselves, we need to clean up the community, and we can do it, I don't think they'd give you a fair shake. I don't think they would give you the microphone.
Mm-mm. Of course not.
Why not? It
because
sounds logical and sensible.
because that's not what they want. They don't want us to band together. They don't want us to be strong together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just
And
like really, yeah, like they just don't want to see us together, have our own way of life. They want to see us depend on the government. They want us to depend on the government. They want us
mm-hmm.
to like really be dependent.
Now,
When
when you say we, do you mean regular people or black people or people not connected to the top of the pyramid? Who are we? Who is, when you say us, to whom are you
I want
referring?
to say Black people and people of color, really,
Okay.
um, yeah, they just don't want to like see us band together because
Why not?
we are so strong. We're so strong. We face so much on a daily basis. And
Hmm.
it's like we can, if we together share experiences and just like work together, you know how much magic we could create? You know how much things, like, Black Wall Street.
Yes,
If that
I
could
know.
happen back then,
Mhm.
imagine what we could do right now.
Yes, yes.
Like, and that just goes to show they don't want to see us like shine or like get up higher.
Who are they?
The government, I wouldn't want to say, yeah, just pretty much the government and people um who don't believe that we're equal to them pretty much.
Hmm.
that don't
Interesting.
see that don't see us that see us as inferior,
Right.
pretty much.
Yeah. It's funny how, and this is why I wanted to talk with you, because we have to some degree come to many of the same conclusions, but from a different angle. Because I
Mm,
always think of Bacon's rebellion back in 16 something or other, and the regular people, indentured servants, white slaves, serfs, black slaves, Native Americans, um, the lower groups
yeah.
were angry. I'll give you the short story. They were angry and got together against the overlords, against the people in power. And it's one of the first times in recorded history in the Americas where the rabble, the lower end of the spectrum, actually banded together. And it's on record that the elite said, we can't have that happen again. We need to divide by race. And they amped up black slave codes. They pushed out the American Indians from doing commerce. They did exactly what I see happening now.
Yeah.
Of course, 1627 style or whatever year it was. It's the same playbook. And I think this is one of the things that you're able to see through your lens. Um,
They're definitely trying to divide us.
yeah.
Um, I feel like with the All Lives Matter, I want to talk about that too.
Yes. I was waiting for
Um,
that.
I the main reason why I don't agree with the saying is because the saying happened after we started saying Black Lives Matter.
Hmm.
And we're not taking away from the fact that we're not saying that all lives don't matter. We're
Hmm.
saying Black lives cannot matter until all lives matter. No, I said that wrong. All lives matter cannot all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. There
Right.
you go. We're not saying that white lives don't matter, Hispanic lives don't matter. We're not saying that. We're saying all lives cannot matter until ours do.
Sure.
And people twist that and try to make it about them. That's what I noticed a lot. Like,
Hmm.
I see it a lot with like white people. I'm gonna say they want to turn the narrative and make it about them when it's
Hmm.
really not, because it's like you're not going through what we go through on a daily basis. And
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say I'm a victim. Like I'm not a victim. I'm not gonna take the victim standpoint because I'm gonna stand up for myself. Like if any situation happens, I'm standing up for myself, right? But yeah, they like to twist it and make it about them and be like, oh, how are you gonna say that? All lives matter. They they don't, because clearly if they mattered, we wouldn't be getting killed.
Hmm.
We wouldn't be getting hanged. Did you know that it was in the past 2 weeks? It's been two hangings.
I didn't
Both of
see,
them
I saw one shooting. I didn't see the hangings you're talking about.
in California. I can pull it up. But there were two separate hangings 50 miles apart. Um in 2020. People are getting lynched in 2020 and they're ruling it as a suicide. Both of these males were found hanging from trees. We're
Hmm.
not hanging ourselves from trees. We're not.
Hmm.
So it's like things are happening and nobody wants to like really do anything. Everybody just wants to talk about how they feel. Let's
Hmm.
do something. I understand you feel a type of way, but let's do something about it.
Right. Well, I think the rhetoric, remember, rhetoric attacks feelings. It goes after feelings. And you have the people in charge of the narrative, so to speak. They don't talk about things that you're talking about, which are factual. They don't talk about stuff that, I mean, one of the interesting things, and it's only a very small section of the social media podcasting world, is like, there are a lot of libertarian podcasts and they've been talking about police killings. There, names you've never heard of. Duncan Lemp was a white kid who was shot in his sleep, no knock raid, blasted into his house. This was March. It's a name you've never heard. And the police went into him because he had social media posts talking about how he didn't like the government. And he was a libertarian and he got killed. There was the other guy in his basketball shorts on his knees, white dude in a hotel, killed in cold blood. He's crying, please, I have a family, don't kill me. And he's killed flat, just dead in a hotel. And none of those stories ever reach any kind of apex. They were certainly never put in front of you. I only saw them because I'm plugged into kind of anti-government, small government, libertarian type stuff. And so when I see emotions getting played with and moved, right, those horrible cases you're talking about in California, which again, those haven't crossed my eyeballs, right?
I send
Because
you to the articles so you can read
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, send them to me, because that's wretched.
Yeah.
And you have some of the messaging, I think, is I think, you know, Black Lives Matter, this whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter rhetoric is just that. I remember, I think it was after, it was either Philando Castile um uh or it was someone else. It might have been even earlier, where someone said, there was an older Black man who I work with, a guy at Mount Vernon, and he said, anyone, he was talking to one of the younger people that we were mutual friends with, and he said, anyone that you need to tell that Black Lives Matter, it's already too late.
Mm.
Like, they don't, if you're going to try to teach somebody that now, it's already too late. And you have a lot of people who either want to be left alone, respect life, and they're getting shouted at on social media and by the corporate press and by busybodies and white progressives who are just ridiculous people, in my opinion.
Oh
No
my
skin in the game at all.
God.
I hate to be long-winded on this, but it's just this kind of toxic blend of none of those things. Shame and anger are not going to get people to buy into the movement. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, what I see is a lot of what you see with this. Let's throw everything that is emotional out there to the people we want in the direction we want. And I've seen people with messages somewhat similar to yours get plastered on social media, just attacked. Like that, we're not, no time for that now. We need to be violent. They only listen when we do things that are violent. And that's an emotional response. I don't think it moves the needle.
Because most of the violence that happened, like the rife and everything, they were doing it locally. They were doing it in their own communities.
Yes.
So it's like you can't shit. Sorry, you
You can,
can't shit where
it's
you lay
not,
at.
this is
Like
not for
you
kids.
have
Say
to,
what you want.
you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're gonna do that, go somewhere else. Protect your own community in the process, because you tearing down buildings and everything, you're just giving an opportunity for somebody else to come in and move in, and then that's pushing you out yourself. Yeah, I was against the whole. I can say that they were against me too, because I was against the whole riot thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
against the looting. I was against everything like that, because I'm like, what's the point? Like, what are we gonna get across? You're just gonna.
I was just going to ask you that. Is doing that helpful? Is doing that useful? I don't see any use for it at all. I think
It
it
makes
is,
noise,
yes,
and people feel like making noise is making change,
I
and it's
guess.
not. It's not. You can make as much noise, but if you're not gonna, like I keep on saying, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna work, it's nothing's gonna happen. And that's what's happening. People are rioting, people are looting to
Mm-hmm.
make noise. And then now that we got America's attention, America's playing us rioting every day now. What is next? You hear that everybody's upset, but what is next? We don't have a leader. We don't have anybody telling us. I don't even need a leader, actually.
That they, yeah. As soon
I
as you
take
said
that
that, I'm
back.
like, yeah. As
Yeah,
soon as
I
you
don't
said
need
that,
a
I'm like,
leader.
that's not you. You don't need a leader.
Yeah, but it's like it's so misguided. Like
Mm-hmm.
I keep on coming back to the fact that it's so misguided. Like you're making so much noise, but what is next?
Mm-hmm.
What is next?
Do
That's my
people
thing.
though? You don't need a leader? I think I have a lot. I've told you I have a lot of respect for your intellectual firepower. You seem to have a measured way about you, and you've been thoughtful and looking ever since you went to that protest when you were younger. And I remember you saying that you almost felt, I don't know if this, I think this is the way you said it. This is a few months ago in class. You said you felt like you were used a little bit, that you were kind of like a prop. Go into that a little bit, because that's a lot of nuanced thought there, where a lot of folks would never even begin to approach that kind of thought. Nobody wants to think that of themselves that way. How'd you get there?
I'm gonna connect it back to this protest too, because I
Okay.
feel kind of the same way.
Preach.
Um, so for it was the gun control protests with the
Yes.
shootings with the schools. We went to
Mm-hmm.
Washington D.C. We got shirts. I made a poster. I still have it. It's in my house.
Mm-hmm.
But I showed up like I always do, and I was making noise. And then I see a whole bunch of kids, a whole bunch of everybody. We're making noise. But then again, I sit back and I look back and I'm like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, we're just here to be here, like, so they can see the body, so they can see that people are making noise, so they can switch the perspective, right?
Hmm.
I did feel like I was kind of being used because nothing changed really.
Hmm.
My points have changed from the time I was in ninth grade with the gun control.
Hmm.
But nothing changed at the time. Really and truly, nothing
Right.
changed. Yeah, we were just there so they can say that kids are making noise pretty much. Kids are there saying what they wanted to say. But really and truly, what I was thinking was just information fed to me. Like, yeah, pretty much. Because now I was talking to my mom the other day
Hmm.
and I was telling her, like, I'm gonna get a gun. She was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a gun. And she was like, oh my God, well, please be careful. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's my right, so I'm gonna get a gun eventually. She was like,
Hmm.
okay. And I was like, because I feel like a lot of stuff wouldn't happen if everybody had freedom, like to bear
Yes.
arm
Hmm.
anywhere, everywhere. I feel like a lot of things wouldn't happen because you're not gonna go somewhere to shoot out knowing
Hmm.
they have a gun too, because you're gonna get killed yourself. Like, I feel like a lot of things would be different if we had a lot of freedom to bear arms.
There are a ton of people who see you as the incarnation of everything wrong when you say stuff like that.
I
They'll
know.
see you as misguided. It's a risky
I know.
proposition to say that. I
I
mean,
know.
what I'll say stuff like that and be like, "Ah, white gun owner type," and I don't own any guns. I own no weapons, right? It's just, I believe in freedom, um, but the gun issue is one that has completely gotten subsumed in all of this. It's completely been lost because you speak clearly on that. Where if people were allowed to exercise their right, it's quite possible, and the numbers bear out, that there would be not no violence, not a perfect utopia, but there would be less of the violence that we see. There certainly is proof in Vermont, which is constitutional carry, right? I mean, if you're over 16, you can carry a weapon. Case closed. I didn't even know this. In Seattle, it's an open carry state. I don't know if you've seen this Chaz stuff, this autonomous zone. Have you taken a look at it? Look up hashtag Chaz or CHOP. There's these people that have taken over a section of Seattle. And there are people, and I was shocked because it's Seattle, right? It's democratic progressive utopia. And they have people out guarding the perimeter. Where they got the barricades and who's paying for all this is another question, but with
Mhm.
rifles. And I'm like, in New York City, if you were to do that, man, I don't care what your position is or what your ethnicity or race is. They are going to put you in the paddy wagon and send you off and put you in a cage. But Seattle apparently is open carry state. So these kinds of things, and you saying that after going to a gun rights, I think it was after the Parkland shooting,
Yeah.
that there
Mhm.
was all that gun stuff, and then your take is just so radically different than everybody else's. Where did you come from? How'd you get to that point? Is it your mom? Like, you told your mom that, and instead of shrieking in horror and evicting you from the house, she says, be careful.
Yeah. My mom, she knows me. She realizes that I change. She
Yes.
watches me change a
Yes.
lot. She's like, okay, well, if this is what you want to do, then I'm gonna support you regardless.
Hmm.
I'm gonna tell you it's danger. I'm gonna tell you what I see and what I think about it, and that's it. And you're gonna do it regardless, because that's what
Uh,
I'm gonna do. Like, you can't tell me not to do it, because I'm gonna do it regardless.
right.
Especially if I made my mind up about it. Um, and you remember you gave me a book, why middle it was the Parkland shooting
Yes.
book.
Why Melanie died, or
Yeah,
Melinda? I can't remember her name. Yes.
yeah, I forgot her name too, but it's in my
Hmm.
room somewhere.
Hmm.
Yeah, the shootings, like school shootings, could possibly be prevented if they see the issue from the beginning. If
Hmm.
they see, like the guy, he showed a lot of red flags,
Yes.
but everybody ignored it.
Yes.
So it's not, I felt like it wasn't the guns that made the issue. It was the system.
Right.
You feel me? The guns are not the issues, it's the system. Fix the system, because if he was able to receive help, that boy would have never shot up that school.
Right.
Just like that.
Right.
So that's how I really changed it. I stopped looking at this one thing, and I
Hmm.
looked at the bigger picture.
Right.
That's what I realized I started to do. I started to pull back and look at the bigger picture when it comes to
Hmm.
stuff like this, because they want us to think this one way when that's not really the reality of it. It's
Right.
much, much bigger than just one thing.
Hmm. Well, you have a lot of people in the past. You have people like Fred Hampton and um, other leaders in the 60s and 70s who decided to do that. And and they were seen there, and they're written in history as kind of like rabble rousers and difficult, bad people, because they're not just following emotions unthinkingly and not staying on script.
Hmm.
And if you go off script, then they, as you say, and how I am with the pronouns, they, whoever they are, and I think that's a whole nother hour and a half long podcast as to who they are, Cierra. We will. It's already too late. I mean, we're going to have tinfoil on our heads any minute now and be accused of talking to aliens. But
Hmm.
they don't really want that. I think that idea of you protecting yourself and being a free, self-sufficient, capable young Black woman, the way I see it is, they to them that's the worst possible thing. Like, you're not supposed to be that. You're supposed to be needing someone else and having someone else handle your affairs for you. And your message, I think, is much more powerful. But I'm telling you, it's just not there. I was hoping that maybe this was like, okay, let's de-escalate militarization of police. Let's talk about police brutality. There's police brutality in the white world. It's never put out there by the power elite. It's never out there in corporate media, because what you'd have, kind of like your Budweiser drinking, American flag waving, sitting in the beach chair in the backyard in the suburbs. All of a sudden, you have that white folk and that group saying, "Hey, wait a minute, they're they work for us, right? We've been voting, right? I'm talking about the blue blood golf playing Republican, right? These are people who are asleep at the switch, just like everybody else. And if you were to put that out there, Duncan Lemp is just one name. There are scores of others. Twice the number of white folk are killed by police every year than Black. Now, the disproportionality is way off the charts, right? In terms of population,
Yeah.
disproportionately,
I was
Black
just
people
about to
are.
say that because I thought about it. I was like,
Oh,
I
oh,
people again.
for sure. And that's the thing that doesn't seem to be allowed to be spoken of. Here you are. I just said that to you.
Hmm.
You're not screaming. You're not crying, right? You're like, those two thoughts can be held together. And you'd think that something that happens twice as much, white people being killed by cops, you'd think it would be out there in the press every once in a while, but it's not. Because if you get people like me or my group banding together, you, it's right-wing zealots, white supremacy. Look at these people protesting, like in Michigan. Remember, they were protesting against the lockdown.
Hmm.
Um,
That was dumb.
they
That was
were,
dumb for me.
they were, and it may have been, you may have disagreed. That's fine. Where
Yeah,
I never, that's people's opinions. I get it.
yeah, true.
But the press's portrayal of it, they weren't saying, oh, these looters in New York, DC, Minneapolis are bad people and they're going to spread a disease. They were putting it out there and saying, look, here's what's going on. These are people who need a voice. They're the disaffected folks. Whereas 2 weeks ago, those people were dangerous zealots who were practically white supremacists who wanted to kill grandma. And so the portrayal of the protests were radically different. What you saw, and I think you're pretty accurate portrayal of them, what you saw that message was very different than the protests in Michigan. And
Hmm.
that's the corporate press doing its handiwork and trying to steer people's emotions and thought processes. You seem immune to that, though. You don't seem to be falling for it.
You remember I told you on multiple occasions that I become unimpressed. Like I really just sit here and be like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like that's my way. Cause I can say I'm young. I was young. I feel like I've
Mhm.
matured over the years as well.
Sure.
But when I was young, I would get angry. I would get so angry. I would get so emotional and everything like that. And I would get hurt because I didn't like seeing stuff like that. I
Hmm.
didn't like the fact that this happened and everything. So I've like developed like a little, I'm gonna detach and I'm just gonna be unimpressed because I see what's going on and I see it's just a play. And yeah, that's literally how I'm getting by this because it's like
Hmm.
it's a play. This is not like it's reality,
Hmm.
but it's a play. The way they want us to feel a type of way, and I'm not gonna let them get that. You feel me? Like I'm not gonna let them get a reaction out of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
and I do post on my social media a lot about the Black Lives Matter and stuff like
Hmm.
that, but I'm spreading information.
I see it.
Yeah. I spread information. I try to spread as much information as I can.
Hmm.
I try to stray away from emotions,
Hmm.
but at times I do express like I'm a little upset, but then
Yes.
again I pull back
Hmm.
and I'm like, all right, this is how they want me to feel. So I'm not gonna give it to them. I wanna come back to this self sufficiency thing.
Hmm.
I took it upon myself to get a tomato plant. I was like, I'm
To
gonna
get
try
into what?
a tomato plant.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting into
Continue.
gardening.
Hmm.
So that's one trait, like one skill I'm trying to build up so I can have a garden of my own. So I don't have to go to the grocery store and get tomatoes. And I don't
Great.
have to go to the grocery store and get vegetables and stuff like
Mm.
that. I'm trying to like look into other things that I can do. I'm trying to do like some skincare
Hmm.
for African Americans so we can be glowing and everything. I'm trying to do things that can help me and help
Hmm.
my family in the future.
Excellent.
Um, yeah, I believe in the self efficiency a lot
Hmm.
because it's very important. Like if we can't fish, I don't know how to fish, and I've been telling people, take me fishing. I want to go fishing so bad. Like I don't know how to fish. I don't know how to do a lot of things, but I'm
Hmm.
willing to learn so I can teach
Right.
my children. I want to give my children the opportunity too.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like if we want to change, we have to start. Like we have to start little. My little is getting a tomato plant.
Yes. Yes.
It's gonna grow into more and more.
Hmm.
You feel me? So yeah, that's how I feel.
That's amazing because the so many people would be afraid, and I'm talking about adults. It's one of the reasons why at a place like Mount Vernon High School, which has its own set of problems, right? We don't need to go into that.
Definitely.
But again, filled with many good people and
Mhm,
way more good students than you ever see in the press.
mhm,
But that there are a lot of adults who would be afraid to do what you're doing, think what you're thinking, and certainly voice that idea because they want, oh, I don't want to be called a prepper. It's those Bible beating Christians in Mormon country who do this kind of stuff. That's tinfoil hat. What do you think they're going to do? What do you think is going to happen? Right? They you saw in the Killer Mike video that one lady running up the aisle shouting at Killer Mike. I don't know if you remember it, but he was going on his rant, and that woman was enraged
yeah.
at that message. Yet you seem unafraid to say
Yeah.
it. And I'm going to put this on YouTube and BitChute and my blog and Facebook and minds.com and Social Galactic and malice.locals.com. I'm going to put it out there. We'll probably have 27 views, but you're still unafraid to do that. And you're not afraid of being called a prepper or a weirdo or any of those things. Why not?
Because it's me.
Okay.
Like at the end of the day, I'm doing what I have to do to feel like I'm gonna survive. Like I'm doing what I have to do to survive, pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and live happy. Like I feel like I'm gonna be so happy in the future when I walk into my garden to water my plants and being able to prep my food that I created from my soil.
Uh-huh.
Like stuff like that will bring me joy. And stuff
Right.
like that would make me feel like, okay, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Right.
If I can really bring food to the table,
Yes.
I'm valid.
Oh,
Like I'm okay.
yeah.
Um, I'm not afraid. Like I can say I'm afraid to express my opinions because of backlash sometimes
Yeah.
that
Do you get some? Do you get
yeah.
backlash? Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's not like because I'm really not it was one time on Facebook where I said like, no, stop the looting. Like this is not like stop the rioting, don't do it in your communities. And some comments are like, no, this is the way. They don't hear us unless we be violent.
Hmm.
And I'm like, not really. Just move it outside your neighborhood if you're gonna do it. But like, relax. Like, it's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna change. It's just gonna make noise, and noise is not change.
Right.
It's two different things.
Huh. That
Yeah.
if I had to make one quote so far from this interview, noise is not change. That's
Yeah.
profound. I know it sounds, and I don't mean to sound paternalistic. I don't know if it does, but that's some profound stuff. That noise, you're right. Noise is not change, and I hadn't been able to distill it that way. But you're right. All of the noise I see and hear, particularly in corporate press and social media, is just that. It's
Mhm.
noise, and there's no change involved in that.
No
That's
change.
pretty deep.
Yeah.
Huh. And are you you're done with high school, so are you less, because these lessons aren't necessarily put out there in high school. You have various classes where you get various messages, and we had a lot of freedom in our class, but you've had other teachers where they've gone off script and you've gotten great information as well.
Hmm.
Um, are you happy with what you got in high school? Your message, your way of thinking is very unique. Was it born in school? Was it helped by? What? Give us a post high school in this very chaotic climate. Give us a post high school review, so to speak.
Okay. So I want to say, like, throughout high school, I've like had the same idea. I just wanted justice. Like, I just want everybody to be okay.
Mm,
Like, I didn't want any police brutality. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted everybody to be okay and live the way they wanted to live, especially with the LGBT community. Same thing. I was always a big supporter of that. Always a
mm,
big supporter of the Black Lives Matter. Throughout high school, yeah, different perspectives came in. Um, it honestly started in 11th grade. I would say that my ideas started to change and everything started to shift.
mm-hmm.
And it happened because of Miss Delaporte. Miss Delaporte really was like, she really made me open my eyes a bit.
Yes.
And most of the stuff that we talked about were like between like the relationship between men and women and
Mm-hmm.
like feminism and stuff like that. But it still opened my eyes, and it made me curious.
Right.
And then it really happened in 12th grade when I met you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Martin, my boyfriend, he would tell me stuff about you all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh wow, he seems like a interesting person. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to have him as a teacher next year, see what it's gonna be like.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would tell me stuff about how you guys would make him, yeah, you would make him watch videos and read stuff about
Mm-hmm.
certain things that nobody was talking about in high school.
Right.
Um, yeah. So when I met you, it was like different. Like it was things that you would say that would have me like, whoa, what? Like I was really like my ideas really shifted. And especially with the conversations with class, seeing all the different perspectives and different takes on the situations that we would talk about, it
Mm-hmm.
really made me open my eyes and really see like, wow, they're really doing us dirty and this is how they want it to like, and they're really controlling us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that this year I want to say really changed everything,
Hmm.
especially with the stuff from sociology
Right.
with Miss Izzo. It just
Yes.
made everything come together. And at one
Yes.
point, it was
Mm-hmm.
like maybe like December, I sat down one day and I was like, wow. Like I just had like a whole wow moment because I didn't know this. Like I
Yes.
didn't see this way. And now that I see it, I can't unsee
Right.
it.
Yes. Once now that you're awake, you can't ever go back to sleep. And Miss Delaporte is one of these people who's spiritual and um,
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
you're never. It's like she doesn't come at you the same angle twice ever. Like every day is different. Every conversation there's a different thing. She and I speak a fair amount, and Miss Izzo, completely unafraid to show you things at a
Mm-hmm.
higher level. I mean, she ran some of the stuff by me, and I hate the university and all the progressive stuff. It just oh, it's just like a knife to the neck. And but she did that on purpose because she wanted to know what that take was, what my take was, what the different look was, where I see some of these ideas
Mm-hmm.
going. And then she has the confidence, guts, whatever you want to call it, say, okay, Cierra and her friends. Here, check it out. And that's one of the benefits of being in a school like Mount Vernon High School, where we are given freedom to do that. At no point has either of the people that you mentioned been called down to the office and said, you've shown Cierra too much. She's thinking a little bit too much. You need to put her back to sleep. It doesn't happen. And there are schools, and I'm going to speak plainly, there are wealthy white district schools where stuff that Izzo, myself, and Delport, if we were to go down those paths, at best, we'd get in trouble. And those, I wouldn't do some of the stuff I do if I were an untenured teacher up in Pleasantville, because it would cost me my job, which is a shame. But I remember with Martin, if I don't know if you remember, but we read the first edition of the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, you told me about that one.
Yeah. And it's 85 pages, and it's everything that you were talking about. He said, I'm going to read, I'm going to be self-sufficient, I can learn anything I want to learn, and I don't need, basically, he says, I don't really need anybody. I'm smart enough to handle my affairs on my own. And that's the message in that book. And it's, of course, been taken out of the curriculum. Those copies I gave them, those were extra copies in the book room that were going to get thrown away. Yeah. So interesting that you bring that up. Now, you mentioned a couple of things about independent thought, and you've mentioned also throughout the year about kind of, I don't know if spiritual awakening is the right way to put it, but let's do this last topic, because I'm intensely curious about how that path parallels with an intellectual path that you're on. What is are you growing spiritually? How does that happen? What was the catalyst? We certainly don't teach any of that in school. This is a Cierra thing. What do you read? How did you get to your new place?
Sorry, my phone's ringing.
That's all right. You have a landline, so I'm not going to style on you. That sounds like a landline phone. Is that grandma's phone?
No, it's our phone. It's like a little, it's cute.
Okay.
It's up to date, kind of.
It's a landline phone or a cell phone? Landline
it's a landline.
phone.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Throwback. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I can't believe people don't have house phones.
Yeah, we do, but we use it for a fax. But there's value in that copper cable phone, because when the power goes out, your copper cable landline will work. Your cell phone won't, because the switchboard will be overloaded. Wow. Anyway, yeah, keep that landline. I haven't taken out the wiring for hours, but you've mentioned that you're spiritually on a path as well. Tell our legions of fans what that's all about.
Well, really, I was going through a hard time this senior year, like the beginning of the senior year, and I needed guidance. I needed something to keep me going. And obviously, I looked through pages of stuff. I was on social media, and then I started following this girl, and she would just her words were really powerful, and they just touched me. So then I started looking into crystals. I started looking into different music that I can listen to that will calm me down, because I had a lot of anxiety and I needed to control it. I needed to settle down, and it just gave me a brighter outlook on life. It was just it was really tough, and I couldn't see light. And with with believing in a higher being, not being God, but being angels and our ancestors that guide us and protect us, it gave me a place. I felt like I was okay, and I was guided, and I was protected. It just gave me something to believe in because of Christianity, and I've been down that road. And people is people. The book itself is okay, but it just wasn't for me.
Okay.
And I just need to see, and I need to do things. And with spirituality, with the thing I'm following, they focus on land and earth and being intact with yourself. So I love that. I love being outside. And I do little rituals that will help me progress in life. I manifest all the time. 1111. You see certain numbers, they mean certain things to you.
Yes.
I manifested it. And one day, I was manifesting for a week straight, because I would see the same number again and again. And I kept on manifesting when I saw it. And guess what? I got a scholarship. And I'm like, things work out in mysterious ways. So I'm just gonna keep my faith and I'm just gonna keep on going. And
Hmm.
that's what I do. And I feel like it gives me, I'm at peace. Really and truly. Like I'm
Huh.
at peace when I do stuff like that.
Interesting, because
Yeah.
it's a time of opposite of peace, right? There,
Yeah.
the way of today seems to keep everybody away from having peace and clarity of thought and quiet, and putting in a tomato plant and feeling comfortable with yourself and confident. All I
Mhm.
hear is all I hear is noise. I'm going to just abjectly steal what you said. I'm shamelessly taking your quote and saying I'm hearing a lot of noise and very little change.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now, I'm stealing it in front of everybody,
Okay.
because it's so good. But that's a very unique thing. So you're not against spirituality. You seem very much for it. It's not very trendy to be spiritual and think about things other than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the common way. You don't hear about that quite a bit. Another instance here, Cierra, where you're going against the grain.
I feel like I wanted to talk about how you said how could I be at peace with everything going on pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I have to detach because I will get tired. I've been there. I've been like I've given what I had before. I've
Mm-hmm.
given all that I had to a cause, all that I had. And I was just left empty, hurting, painful, everything. And I realized that I have to detach and I have to focus on me at the same time. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not selfish. That's not selfish at all. And people view that as selfish because, oh, wow, how can you do that when so much stuff is happening?
Mm-hmm.
My little thing my little thing is not going to change the whole situation
Mm-hmm.
that's happening. Like me focusing on myself and doing what I have to do to make
Mm-hmm.
me happy and settle my nerves, it's not going to change the world in one go.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to focus on myself and I have to be able to be okay by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that inner power, that starting with what you can control. One of the things
Mm-hmm.
I've said quite a bit is there seems to be a battle. Now they
Mm-hmm.
they want a battle between races. Of course, it's very beneficial for them. And
Mm-hmm.
it also seems that one of the things they don't want is people looking inwards at themselves, taking care of themselves instead of worrying about what those people over there are doing. Right? Everybody seems to be wanting to, and they're using shame and
Definitely.
hurt and fury and violence to try to force people to think and say what they want those people to say. There's a lot of that. And it's the antithesis of what you were talking about, where that inner comfort, it really emanates strength from you, in my opinion, that you're able to do that. And you seem completely unconcerned that because that message doesn't jive with what is out there in the zeitgeist, in the narrative, you seem completely unconcerned, which is a feather in your cap. It's very rare.
Yeah. I mean, nobody got me like how I got me. And
Hmm.
I'm okay with that.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic. So let's leave with this. Is there anything that if you were to give advice, and most people over the age of 25 are not ready to hear it or able or willing. So let's talk to younger folks, which I try to do with mixed success. Um, if you were to tell some of your peers what you think is most important in this kind of tumultuous time in the United States, what do you think you would, as a teacher or a friend or a compatriot, someone, what do you
Mhm.
think you would try to tell somebody around your age, plus or minus 5 years? What do you think is maybe the most important thing or few things that you would really want them to listen to and learn?
Um, what really worked for me was detaching. um, yeah, I would just say don't let your actions rule over your emotions, even though it may be hard.
Hmm.
It's very hard to train yourself to be like, I'm not going to react this way because they want me to react this way. And I can go with this situation and situations outside with friends and everything. Like, you
Hmm.
have to be able to be like, no, I have to relax and I have to think this through. Um, don't just act out of impulse because a lot of the time the impulses they're not in your best interest. They're not
Hmm.
something that you should do at the time because you're thinking with emotion. Um, what else would I tell them? Show up. Show up.
Explain.
Um,
Good one.
if if you know something's happening, show up. Like if there's an event that's happening, you show up. You be there, no matter how small or how big the event is. If it's
Hmm.
benefiting your community, if it's any way, any shape or form benefiting you, you show up. If it's like say an informational situation where they give you information and you have to learn, show up. Because throughout my whole 4 years, I showed up. Everywhere, anything, I showed up. People tell me something, I'm there. You got to show up so you can see. Because by you sitting there and not looking at things and not seeing things in different perspectives, by not showing up, you're just going to be stuck in the same set. You're going to be stuck in the same mindset pretty much. Um, yeah, show up and out, be there, and get connects. Like connect with people and
Hmm. In
build
person
relationships.
or online or both?
Both.
Okay.
Because both works now. Both socially and
In
going on.
person. Yeah.
Yep, they both work. Because you never know who you're gonna need, and people are more likely to help you. Like I thought people wouldn't help me, but people are helping me, and I'm like, whoa, thank you for all the support and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would just say detach and show up,
Right.
and make sure you have your head on your shoulders. Like make sure you're okay with yourself as well.
Hmm.
Like make sure you're okay, because you can't show up and out if you're not okay in here, and you're not mentally ready. None of that. Like you
Right.
have to find yourself. You have to do some inner work. That's me.
That's fantastic. I had a colleague many years ago, a guy named Dave. Dave Johnson was a history teacher, and this is probably 2003.
Mm,
It was my second year at Mount Vernon High School, and we were looking around, and he and I both taught in the Bronx,
mm-hmm.
and we were looking around the place, and it's chaotic and loud, and not as much learning going on as we would have liked. And I said, man, we were both talking about how there are problems. And I said, what do you think is one of the bigger ones? Is it administration? Is it teachers? Is it the system? Like, he's like, no, and he's a black guy. He's a principal now, I think, in Rockland County. But he said, no, it's self-love, self-worth. And he's talking about the black people, we need to have our own self-esteem built up. We need to have ourselves individually. He wasn't talking about the community necessarily. It was like each person as an individual together.
Mm-hmm.
You start with what's in here, and your self-esteem needs to be raised and needs to be sound and based on something firm. And I wasn't ready for the message at the time. That I was probably 31 years old, 32. And I saw that as a lot of teacher talk, happy sunshine, let's hold hands and cry a little bit and everything will be fine. But he was right.
Yeah.
And he uses a different set of words than you just did. But that is a fantastic message. And I know I sound repetitive, but it's not the message that's out there. So I'm glad that we were able to connect.
Yeah.
What started off as kind of, we haven't spoken face to face since March, and what started off as kind of a colder digital thing, I think turned into a much more energetic, this is kind of how we would talk in class. It turned into that. It's funny how you're okay with the personal and the digital chat, because some people can't operate in both spheres.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with what he said. I agree with what he said 100% as well. I see it a lot. I see it among girls now. They don't respect themselves. Most of them don't respect themselves. Um, some I'm not gonna speak, but like you really, if you want respect, you have to respect yourself. Like you have to have respect for yourself in order to get respect. Because if
Hmm.
you don't respect yourself, you're gonna let anything slide. You know, let everybody talk to you anyway, all of that.
Hmm.
But if you are standing with yourself and you're like, no, I'm not gonna let nobody disrespect me. I'm gonna be strong and I'm gonna love myself, regardless of what anybody else says. Nobody can say nothing to you. Nobody can step to you like that.
Why do you single out the young women? Like, what do you see that's so glaring, and where do you see it? And I
I
know I said
think
we were going to finish, but this is something, here you go again, doing the Cierra Jones special and coming up with something that
Um,
is interesting. What are you seeing? It's interesting that that hit a nerve.
really, like, I see it with the younger females and
Uh-huh.
some of the older females. Um, they'll just let anything slide. Like, people, especially males, black males love to disrespect black women
Hmm.
all the time. And most of them just let it slide. Somebody calling, I was seeing in the hallway, boys calling a girl bitch,
Hmm.
SMD, all of that. Nobody could talk to me like that
Hmm.
because what if I was your mother? You're not gonna talk to me like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I see it all the time. They they allow room for people to disrespect them, and that's not okay. Um,
Why do they do it? It seems obvious to you, seems obvious to me. Why is it not obvious to them? Right? I have all girls. I live in a house with all women. I'll go
mhm,
crazy. Someone's going to talk like that to one of the ladies in my house. That's not
mhm.
okay. And they wouldn't go for it either. Like, look at worst, look at them funny. My, wifey will start throwing things. No, you're not going to have that, right?
Yeah.
It's just violent. Why is it not obvious? What on earth is going on that you see that kind of disrespect slide?
It's just because they don't feel like their self-esteem is very low, so they'll welcome anything
Hmm.
and everything, and especially with relationships as well. Like, I don't know how people do it. Like, they let anything slide. Their boyfriend can cheat on them multiple times and they'll be okay with it.
Hmm.
Mm-mm, that's not okay. People like to normalize cheating a lot. It's not okay. Um, with males, they like, oh my God, I recently saw a video of this woman getting thrown into a garbage by a group of males because um she wasn't engaging with one of the guys. And I was like, are you serious? Like, how could that happen?
Hmm.
Like, how could that happen? Um, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and
It's a
and
lot of
we'll
work.
and let's again. I hate to throw the burden of humanity on you or womanhood on you, but how do
Mhm.
these women? What's the fix? Should they pull away from social media? Is it how does somebody begin the project yourself? How do you build start the project of rebuilding oneself so that it is obvious that because I see the same thing. I don't talk about it as much because I see it at work. I see it at Mount Vernon High School as well. I see a lot of guys saying a lot of terrible things
Mhm.
to not exclusively, but mostly some of the younger women.
Yeah.
And it's rampant and out of control, in my opinion. How do you, and I'll talk to guys, I'll blast into guys for that. Like, that's not how you do it. I bet you don't do that at the house.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Mm.
but they'll come to the hallway and do it to, because I have mostly freshmen most years.
Mhm.
I've got very young women. These are 14, 15-year-old girls. And sometimes I see them. These are young women with intellectual firepower, more maturity than the guys. They show up that way.
Mhm.
And yet I'll see the same kind of behavior that you talk, same kind of wretched behavior that you talk about.
Mhm.
Um, and they, far too many, not everybody, of course, but far too many are accepting of it. What's the fix? Some people blame it on social media and Instagram. Is that the fix? Is it pulling away from that? Where do you start?
It's honestly you as a person. It starts with you. You have to
Hmm.
take the initiative. Um, yeah, you just have to take the initiative. I guess social media does influence a lot of ideas. They spread around perfect, like they have certain perspectives that they want us to see. They want us to act, not act, but they spread out ideas about what a perfect relationship should look like. What
Who
are
are
I
they? In this case, who are they? I'm sorry to interrupt. Who are they? You said
Yeah,
they want you to see certain things on social media. Now with social media, it gets a little more clouded.
okay. So hmm, it's just normal people with
Hmm.
relationship, like with things about that, like
Hmm.
ideas being spread. It would be just normal people.
Okay.
Yeah, it would definitely be just normal people
So
that
it's
just
not
spend
the it's not the Jenner girl. It's not Kaylee or Kylie Jenner or Kim Kardashian or any of these people. Is it the so-called, a term I hate, but is it the influencers or is
yeah,
it
it could, yeah, it's definitely the influencers and their social medias as well,
okay.
and other people's social media. It's like it's a whole thing.
Hmm.
The influencers do have a lot of influence on people because a lot of the goals that they have that are goals are not really goals.
Hmm.
They're not really like sustainable. Like they're just like then and now. Like
Right.
they're not for the future. Like they're just like ideas that are not healthy
Hmm.
for somebody to have.
Right.
Really? Yeah.
Right.
Um, what was I gonna say?
Hotep Jesus was talking about this in a different one, not the video I showed you guys about Minneapolis, but he was saying how he had real contempt for some of the black women influencers because they have a gob of, they've got tons of money. They spend it on Gucci and Fendi bags and all kinds of amazing kinds of accoutrements and
Mhm.
clothes. And then they turn around, put a black square on their Instagram page and say something's wrong with the community. And he's like, well, why don't you do something other than spend it on Gucci and Ferrari and amazing gear and put something in it, put some of those resources in a different direction. He just went off. It was
Mhm.
an hour plus long interview with somebody else. So it was a little bit too long to give to the class, but it was paralleling kind of what you were saying. His delivery, of course, was different, but um, the self-esteem, because he was talking about how young women are dragged in that direction
Mhm.
and then wonder why is everything so screwed up in themselves. He wasn't talking about the black community. He was talking about just them internally.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that affect a female's mental.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I mean, growing up, we were like honestly, I can say I was taught to like not like my features at all.
Hmm.
No representation in media. No type of like I remember like a few shows compared to the mass majority of shows, a few
Hmm.
shows had black people in it.
Hmm.
You never see models that are black and that embrace their blackness.
Hmm.
It's like we're taught to hate certain things about ourselves. We're taught to feel
By,
guilty. Why?
no, by whom?
By the media, pretty much. I feel like the media has a big role in it because that's what we
Hmm.
see all the time.
Hmm.
Everywhere we see media, like on the billboards, you see everything like all the time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I feel like that's one of the main issues when it comes to girls not having respect for themselves because we're taught like don't like this, you should look like this, you should be like this. And if I feel like that, and if I internalize that, and I believe that, then obviously I'm gonna feel like I'm not worthy, and obviously I'm gonna feel like I don't deserve the respect, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna let anybody talk to me anyway, and I'm gonna let
Hmm.
anybody say anything to me like that.
Right.
So you have to learn how to embrace your features.
Yeah.
Growing up as a black female, you're gonna have to learn. Like you're gonna have to. I'm telling you, black women are so strong. I don't know how they do it. I don't
Well,
know
I
how they
mean,
do it.
it's a wellspring. A lot of that is a wellspring of strength. That I think earlier on in our conversation, you were saying that they, and someone should make a game out of it. When you or I say they, right? We salute or wave a hand or take a drink or something because they.
They,
I think that they don't want that wellspring of strength out there. That kind of strength, economic and spiritual power, um, being unleashed, then their power, their influence, their wealth disappears. And Black Wall Street is just one example. There are tons of others. You know,
mhm,
there's a lot of stuff that's been erased from the history books. That's why I went with the Frederick Douglass material with Martin's 11th grade English class, because I had nothing to lose. I'm like, let's go all out. Let's go to the source
yeah,
and look at someone who had nothing. You know, talk about a difficult life. Um, where's
definitely.
the next meal coming from and how do I get out of physical bondage was
Hmm.
his growing up life. So um, let's end with that. We could go on for another hour, and I hope we
Yeah,
do. I hope we do connect in a couple of weeks, maybe before you go away to university, and then reconnect maybe midway through the year to see where your journey has taken you.
of course.
I think people would be interested in that. Without sounding like your grandfather, I think you have a lot to offer. I'm proud of what you've become, and I think you have a lot of pull. I think
Thank you.
there'll be, it may not be huge numbers, but there'll be a couple of people who will listen to this and hear you in a way that you'd be surprised. I think your voice really will pull weight and get people to think more deeply.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So stay on for a second. I'm going to hit stop and we'll chat for a second. Take care.